We'll call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the agenda and any additions or corrections?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second. Oh, you got it, Dana.
All in favor? Opposed? Minutes from last week.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment period. Reminder, no personal attacks are allowed. State your township and name.
Hi, good morning, Commissioners. Mike Fields, Winnebago Township. Between Donna Buckby's door-knocking campaign, an online poll conducted by the Houston County News, and a statewide poll conducted by the Land Stewardship Project, we're getting a pretty clear picture on just how unpopular frac sand mining is. About 90% of your constituents don't want anything to do with it. Now, one or two commissioners seem to quake in their boots whenever the prospect of being sued by Rick Frick or Tracy Erickson is raised. I am here to ease those fears. The only cost to the county, after totally banning frac sand mining, would be a lawsuit that may never even happen. With 90% of the county opposed to this dangerous and destructive practice, do you really think there would be any kind of meaningful backlash if our property taxes went up a few bucks to cover the cost of litigation? Personally, I would consider that to be money well spent. It's an investment in the future of Houston County. On the other hand, there will be huge costs associated with not banning frac sand mining, not least of which would be the cost of monitoring and regulating this destructive and dangerous practice. Commissioner Shomi raised the issue of cost during, I think it was last week's meeting, but it didn't seem to register. So that's why today I am asking my commissioner to make a motion or take whatever steps are necessary to have the costs of monitoring and regulating included in the ordinance currently being drafted by the Frac Sand Study Committee, with whatever numbers they come up with being verified by a third party. The next study committee meeting is this Monday, so they may as well start crunching those numbers right away. And if any commissioner doesn't want to know what those costs will be, an explanation would be interesting. Commissioner Shomi, I'd like to see you make that request today. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else wish to address the board at this time? If not, Rick?
Good morning, Commissioners. Last week at our EDA meeting, we held a public hearing in regard to an application for a business subsidy in the form of a Minnesota Investment Fund application to deed on behalf of Crest Precast in La Crescent Township. This is a project that had originally started last year prior to my arrival, was kind of put on the back burner, but now is the time that they're seeing the need to grow and expand here. This project, the application would be for a business subsidy from deed for $192,000, which would be repaid over 10 years at 2% interest. The Houston County EDA would then collect 20% of that principal cost as well as the interest earned on that to go back into our revolving loan fund to continue the work that we've been doing for our businesses here in the area. We had at our meeting last week Mr. Steve Matter from Crest Precast as well as his son and John Pulley from Merchants Bank, who is financing the private portion of this. And they gave our EDA board a background about their company, their history here in the county, and their project and what it would mean for them to move forward. One thing that I do want to highlight that was brought up at the meeting last week was that their impact and their proposed number of jobs would be, they have committed to at least 8 new employees over a 2-year period, which they feel very confident that it will be achieved and likely expanded upon and grow even more. But they are committed to 8 over a 2-year period. However, the economic impact of their expansion project and the additional work that they will be doing has impacts throughout the county. They work with a supplier of parts that is in the county as well, and they've done some significant business with them and continue to do even more. They also utilize local truck drivers to haul their materials out to their customers, which also has an extended impact, which would mean more routes and more deliveries for them to make. So the economic impact of this is great, and with the financing supplied by both DEED in the term of the Minnesota Investment Fund as well as the county's contribution to that, this project is going to go forward as soon as the paperwork is signed. So I believe we have a resolution that was included that would ask for you to consider for us to apply on their behalf. We have had a representative from DEED come down and tour the company as well, and given all of the requirements for application, the wage requirements, the project requirements, things like that, everything fits into the program and is suited to go forward. The company has provided all the necessary documents that DEED requires for application as well. So upon passage of this resolution here today, we can submit the paperwork tomorrow and officially get that project started.
I make a motion that we go forward with the resolution to do the financing through EDA or Crest Precast.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's a good project.
It is a good project. In addition to the passage of that resolution, I'd ask that the board also approve the contribution from the Houston County EDA revolving loan fund. Part of this financing package asks for the local unit of government to contribute as well. And at our meeting last week, we also approved a $65,000 loan for the project that would be combined with that. Terms would be as well 10 years at 2% interest. The EDA board passed that contingent upon approval from DEED for the final application. And I'd ask the board at this time to approve that so that that portion can be included as well.
Move to approve?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That is all I have.
Thank you, Rick. Those are two really good.
Yeah, it's very encouraging that we can get the word out too about the assistance that we can provide to our businesses in the area to help see them grow. Two, I just want to note a reminder for folks that on Thursday, May 8th, we are planning a Houston County EDA Summit at Corky's in La Crescent from 5 to 7 p.m. We have a very special guest speaker that will share kind of his story of entrepreneurism and how he got to where he is, which will be very interesting. We'll also have additional information on programs available, such as the Minnesota Investment Fund, as well as DEED's newer program called the Job Creation Fund. Also highlight some of the USDA programs that can be tapped into as well. And then we also want to open it up, and we want to have representatives from our communities attend to share updates and identify struggles and what they're working on, so that we can work more collaboratively together as a county. So if any of you are able to attend, it'd be great, and we should have a good turnout and free pizza and drinks there too. So, any other questions? Or?
Great job.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Tess, would you like to move ahead on the agenda?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I don't know if you have a copy of this since it's a little late. The public health director, Mary Marshall, and myself, she has a proposal in front of the board today. She's been working closely with the HR office. Any potential, not necessarily concerns, but any potential interest the unions might have, I should say. Maybe it is a concern. And her internship proposal. We have a draft copy in front of you today. It is a wonderful educational opportunity for students who are nursing majors as well as students who are health education majors. And I understand that there is funding to go forward with this. The reason the HR office is involved is because we would be proposing to put these students on in a paid internship capacity, and they would be hired as 67-day employees. Mary, would you like to talk about your program proposal?
Well, I think what we have before you is kind of a draft of what it is that we're thinking, both for potentially health education majors and nursing students between their 3rd and 4th year of studentship, maybe. And we have identified some dollars that have come through our SHIP grant. And I think really the advantage for, it's a win for everybody. It's a win for the students, it's a win for the agency. Sometimes there are capacity issues, and particularly with grants, as you know, they come and go. And we've identified this $8,000 to $10,000 that we have kind of, at least at this point, it's one-time funding that has come from some surplus of some SHIP dollars. We have identified some activities that we could assign students to do, and particularly in the health promotion and health education area. We have staff that are certainly willing to provide some oversight with potentially up to 2 students. The staff have been working hard to actually put together some, what I think are really tremendous modules for students, so that when they come in, we just don't say, here's your work, have at it. It comes with some expectations of some areas of exposure that they will have in the areas that we've identified where there's some opportunities for students. I also think it's great for staff because we have, as we proposed in this draft, really the opportunity to really look at what are some of the new and best practices in the field, and have some access to the academic setting as well for staff. So I think it's kind of energizing and invigorating for everybody. So what we have today before you is this proposal, and any questions?
I think it's a good idea. Question for you. Money-wise to fund this, where does that come from?
It's coming from the state health improvement project, which is a state grant.
Okay, so it's all grant, it's not any county dollar?
No.
It's all externally funded.
Haven't you always had interns over the years?
We have. I think we're looking to use them perhaps in a little bit different capacity, where we're actually giving them assignments of work to do and some specific tasks that they need to get done. It's more than just a come in and see what we do. It's here's some assignments, some very specific job duties and tasks that we need to have accomplished, and we'll be having some metrics to make sure that that they're on task, that they're getting their work done. And so it's a little bit different than just having them come in and get some clinical experience. This is actually, we have some expectations about some work that has to get completed.
So in the past, the interns were, they just came on their own we did not fund them at all?
No.
Okay.
The last one you had, she was
She was terrific.
very
much,
involved.
terrific. Yeah.
So now you're thinking of making them a 67-day employee
As
and
we have
using,
the resources to do.
rather than letting them do their internship like previously.
More and more institutions of higher education are looking for, their preference certainly is not to have their students be supplying going out in the field without any kind of compensation. This has been a movement in higher ed for a good number of years, that the preference clearly is paid internships. Paid internships actually come with a different level of accountability. They also come with a different level of expectations of what the students are going to learn on site. And more, when the educational institution is involved, which Mary will be talking with the various schools that these students may be coming from, they want to know exactly what the student is going to be doing, and that it is of a high enough caliber and not just observing, in order for the students to earn the credit. And keep in mind, these students are paying for this credit. They're paying for the experience at the other end, at the educational institution. So if they're getting anywhere between 2 and 4 credits of academic credit at the upper level, 3rd and 4th year credit, the work has to reflect that level for the students to get the credit. Or at the end of the day, the person who's evaluating it from the educational institution could deny part of the credit. So this really has to be a well thought out process, and I think Mary has done an excellent job of that. We are going to be meeting, I believe it's next week, with ASME, just to assure we don't have any issues on the health education side. If we do, we will work through, I have all hopes that we can easily work through them.
So you just need a motion to go forward?
I have one more question.
Let me just real quickly, because 67-day employees, if we're going to put somebody on the records, we always come to the board and, on the books, come to the board to get permission to hire the 67-day employees. So yes.
Oh, okay.
So it'll go through the same hiring process as anyone else that comes to the board, or are we working through certain schools?
No,
or-
Mary would be working with the educational institutions to identify the interns that would be coming forward. And so it would be a different process. It would not be the advertised equal opportunity hiring process that you're more familiar with, but rather an equal opportunity educational process that Mary will work through with the students and the staff at the schools.
I think we've had it, it's highlighted on that side here about sending in a cover letter, resume, and letter of recommendations. That's how we would do that. And then we would definitely go through at least an interview process.
So do they get an hourly wage, or so that we don't exceed the SHIP grant money?
They would receive what other 67-day employees are paid. That was $11.62 an hour.
Which is pretty good internship pay.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
And a lot of them are not paid. I move that we approve the Houston County Public Health Internship Program for the health education and BSN nursing students, so long as that it meets everything with the unions. And the union agreements.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Commissioners. And as with any other 67-day employees, once Mary has identified the students that we're proposing, we will bring their name forward so that you can officially put them on the record as a Houston County employee, 67-day employees.
And we'll probably bring them to introduce them to the board as well. See who they are.
Mary, are you watching the video conference today?
Am I watching the video conference?
Yeah, they want to Fillmore County.
Today?
Is that today?
Yes.
Well, I think it's 12 to 1
Are you-
today.
Yes,
Are you viewing it at your place?
No, we
Where are you
couldn't
going?
get onto the site, it was full. We're going over to Preston.
Okay. I'd like-
Did you want to ride?
I should go see it too.
Yes, we're gonna leave it.
Where is it over in Crescent?
I believe it's in the courthouse.
In the corner?
Yeah.
How about you?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next, we will be talking about rekeying this facility. What I'm passing out right now is the second estimate. Remember, I had some printing problems last week, and we had a second quote that I wanted to supply you. And as well as I've received information back reflecting what it would take to redo the handles on the exterior suite doors to make them levers. And that was one of the questions, I believe, that came, directions that I was asked to follow up on. I am still of the mind to, my recommendation is to stay with my original recommendation, and that is to rekey the historical courthouse at a cost of $7,339. Now, that is the low quote. Additionally, I do have the quote on the levers. I'm not actually recommending that at this time, though. It would take, we would have 6 pass door levers, 19 entry levers, and 25 plates. Parts and labor come up to about well over $4,000. It's $4,632.50. This is not something that's required. It would be if we were a new facility. $4,600 and $4,632 is significant for putting new handles around your doors. If you wish to do that, and identify funds to do that, my preference would be not to do that at this time. That would push this up to about $1,200, and that's, or excuse me, $12,000. If it was $1,200, I'd say go for it tomorrow. But $12,000, and I would like to.
You had another estimate also from Bob.
So we passed that out last week. That was the estimate for to rekey all the doors except for the cost of the keys, of course, is separate, but at a cost of $7,339. The high quote was $11,460, so you can see it's a significant difference.
Is this budgeted for in your budget?
But
Or which budget did this come
I do
on?
not have line item replacement budgets for redoing the courthouse. I get a block amount of money and I go through the process, and this is something that's been on my list of for updating for a couple of years now, and it's risen to the top of my list. So yes, Commissioner, there is money in there. It's not a line item budgeted thing because the improvement fund is a block amount there. I work with them. And just for that amount, just so folks understand, we've been very frugal with that and been able to lower that each year, that improvement amount. But this is well within that, our ability to do that, to take care of this.
So how much is in the improvement fund over the,
Well, I would have to go back and look at it. I can't.
you don't know,
recall what the
Carol?
balance. I have to look and see what's outstanding, but I know there's plenty. We're early in the year and we've been very cautious with it.
$30,000
That's what we start with.
we started with, and we really haven't spent.
A couple of years ago, I believe it was 45,000. So we really took some big cuts. We last year did all of the alarm systems. So we've been very trying. Health, security, and well-being are usually top the list for me, and then I go from there. Emergencies, of course, are always in there, but we set aside some for that.
If we did all the locks now and decided to do the lever handles 3-4 years down the road, would we have to change the locks again? Or would they work in the,
Well, they would rekey, they would have to
With
put
the
new
digital.
cylinders in there. and at the cost of probably more than what we're talking about here, new cylinders, but they would be keyed to our to the masters we have.
It would
We
be
would not
different
be
locks.
rekeying the entire building, it would just be redoing those locks and
In the
keying
doors.
those cylinders to
Wherever
the
the doors
existing
were.
keys. So for instance, if we have a lock break and we have to replace a cylinder, they'll be rekeyed to whatever we have now here.
And the
I consider
levers,
this a major security issue
Mhm.
that I really am highly recommending that we rekey this building.
how long have the existing's been here?
Not longer than I have been, but the issue is, over the years, we really, and through no fault of employees, I don't want to make it sound like that at all, but through the years, keys, through a lot of years, okay, a lot of keys have been issued. There have, possibly keys weren't returned, rooms where people reshuffled floors and rooms and tried to get a handle on the keys outstanding. We have, I have a closet full of keys. Every time we have to have somebody come, we have to, and that's a safety issue, trying to find the right key for the right room. Heavens forbid we ever had a real fire, you'd be looking at a lot more destruction than the $7,000 because they'd literally have to ram doors down or whatever. We really need to have a grand master and a couple of subs and have everybody else on a very strict sign-out, sign-in basis. This covers even our padlocks, it covers every closet we have, it covers everything.
I'd make a motion that we go forward with this, but I really would like to see the end doors be secure at the same time that we're doing keys.
The two
Egress,
doors.
you would like those to be egress only?
Yes, except for the surveyor's
I was going to
office
say,
getting
except
in.
for that, because that would be, in my opinion, an OSHA issue of hauling
Great,
materials in and out.
Great.
And, thank you.
Clarification, is your motion including the levers too, or just?
no, just
the
the,
routine? Okay.
right, just what she was asking
Yeah, her
for.
recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Let's second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. I'm sure the fire department thinks she was so. And just a quick update. I actually was over in the historical jail this morning, and things are, it's always amazing the difference a day makes. And things are looking fairly good. I talked to them right as they were completing the moisture, air moisture study, our air moisture recordings. This morning when I was over there, the external ambient air was at 43 degrees, but 49% humidity, so that helps put this in a little bit of perspective. The main floor of the building, when we have a desiccant, which is a big fancy dehumidifier, go in on 4/18/14. And when they went in there, the building was testing at, on the main floor, at 86% humidity. And it's this morning down to 36%. And I had a lot of concern that maybe it wasn't, that had been voiced to me, that it had, wasn't reducing quickly enough. But it seems to be doing so. The second floor, last Friday, the testing was at 79%. We've got that down to 34%. And the basement was testing at 89%. We have that down to 44%. Now, at this point, we have a couple of things that are going to be happening as we go forward. It's been a nice team to work with. The team has been the adjuster from MCIT as well as an MCIT rep. Structural engineer will be here this morning. He has been hired by MCIT to come and take a look at the foundation as well as the structural supports and joists on the inside of the building so that we know what we're really dealing with. Because at some point the board's going to have to make a determination whether to keep the building or to raise the building. And we will need to know that before we complete the mitigation process, or it would be very helpful to know that, so that we know, so insurance isn't, we have the appropriate actions going forward. We wouldn't, for instance, want to be tearing things out that don't need to be torn out, but at the same time, we wouldn't want to be saving something that doesn't need to be saved, so we'll have to make a determination. So the structural engineer will not have his report today. He may in his own head have a good idea of what he's thinking. I'm not sure he'll share that with us. He may. But the adjuster will be here talking with him at the same time, and I believe the board chair might possibly be able to come along if your agenda permits. The state conservator from the Minnesota Historical Society has also been down. He's been talking, encouraging, talking with the adjuster, talking with the service master on appropriate mitigation as well. And there doesn't seem to be too many conflicts. I've had some good conversations over there. He reminds us there's several thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars that potentially we could tap into, and that it would be a good opportunity. It would be a good project for that, for their grants. He also is going to get back to me today for, there's about $6,000 in emergency funds that we might be able to use that would help us in our efforts. Things such as, labeling woodwork and getting.
Is that through the historic?
Through the Historical Society.
Does that latch us in at all to committing to preserving the building by taking?
Well, you're going to have to make
those
that
funds?
decision once you get the structural report back and decide which way to go, because both the team that's doing the mitigation and CIT, there's been some discussion that at some point you have to make that determination, because we're still in early steps, but as they progress, they need to know which way to progress with it. We're looking at lining up a meeting, having a crew here to address the board. After we get that structural report back, that would be made up of the adjuster. They would stand for questions. The adjuster, Minnesota Historical Society, like I said, they've sent their fellow down twice. I would be inviting Rick Howden, because EDA's been working closely with us, as well as, I can't speak for the structural engineer as I haven't met him yet. He's from Encompass, but potentially he'll be able to come as well to help you provide and answer any questions you might have, so that in your deliberations. Please know we are going to, on Friday I delivered a copy of the asbestos and testing report to the project manager for Service Master, and he's been in conversation with the company out of La Crosse that did the testing originally. But they determined, who was it? Yesterday, I guess. I wasn't sure if it was Sunday or yesterday. That we require further testing. Whether you're going to take the building down or leave the building, we are going to have further testing. That would be covered by MCIT, our insurance. There's a few things that were not tested that they need to know about before they remove them. There's some questions as to whether some of the paint has lead in it. It's likely it does, and there's a way we're supposed to dispose of that, as well as some materials that just were not tested before because they now exposed that they would like to test.
So do we know for sure what caused the water?
Oh, yes, we do know for sure. Well, as for sure as one can be. This building runs heat to that building over there, and we have, under the ground, there's a loop that feeds that building, a hot water loop. What you have is hot water, low pressure hot water heat in this building and that building. And because of the severe winter this year, I don't know exactly when, because the frost line moves, but it froze, and sometime during March is what we're guessing. and it froze that building. It popped. What ended up happening was the water line going over there actually popped away from the wall. We did not have, now you would say, why wouldn't you know that your boilers are calling for water? Our boilers did not call for water until the Friday of the flood. I'm calling it a flood, the water damage. It's kind of like one of those perfect storm things. If we knew, obviously, it was calling for water and that there was a breach in the system, we would have been at it, but we didn't know that. And so it called for water on Friday. Of course, by then it was really popped out, but we think it was, obviously, we know it was frozen prior to then, but that's when it burst.
So we don't know how long there was no heat over there.
Well, no, to answer that exactly when it went out, no. We know on March 23rd, the sprinkler system appeared intact. But on the Friday, a week ago Friday, it wasn't. And that's all I know.
So somebody had been in the building checking the building on March 23rd?
Yes, maintenance had been in that building. That was a site.
And there was heat at that time?
What level of heat, I can't testify
So do we
here,
routinely
too.
check on it?
Well, they were in the building on about once a month. And you know, you have, can we Monday morning quarterback this and say, yes, we should have been in there daily with their thermostats and, well, yes, now I suppose we could have been. But I tell you, winter 3 years ago, we didn't have an issue. Winter 2 years ago, we didn't have an issue. Early winter this winter, we didn't have an issue. Didn't appear we had an issue in January. The city was in there with us in February, removing the sirens, and didn't appear to have an issue then. That's all. Those are the only facts I know. Everything else is speculation.
So just the water line that broke, not the sprinklers?
The sprinkler
line
lines.
broke. The
The
building had been,
Was it, you said about the boiler line, water
the boiler line failed,
causing the heat to go.
causing the
And
heat
then the
to go up.
sprinklers froze.
And the sprinklers froze.
So when the water started coming out of the sprinklers, was there a flow
What I
switch
said-
that would
what
set
I
off the alarms? Would that set off the fire alarms?
It would
The fact that the
have,
sprinklers
those
are going?
alarms, as I stated last week, those alarm, it does set off when there's a call for water on the sprinklers. That sets off an alarm that's was sent to the old dispatch. It was not required when the fire marshal came in and inspected. We've had our sprinklers inspected as well. Not each year, but the year we vacated the building. They said that it wasn't required to have further inspections from that perspective for the fire marshal. But those were, the alarm went to dispatch. Well, dispatch was in that building. There was no alarm that went to the new dispatch on that. But they didn't call for water and didn't break until Friday, a week ago. Now, they froze prior to that. How long, how many days they were frozen, I cannot tell you. Enough days that it caused that breach in the system. The regular plumbing had been drained. All the other plumbing had been drained. We did that 3 years ago. And we put appropriate, what I call antifreeze in the system to keep those joints going. And that's what I know.
And when I was in the building, after the fact, it looked like it was the pipe couplings that failed. And they would have cracked, I think, once the water froze, they would have cracked. And then once the water thawed out, that's when they blew off. You wouldn't have noticed it. An inspection, when we did our inspection, the couplings were laying on the floor. They were broken. And I think that would have occurred after the water thawed out, pressure, popped them. But they would have cracked at some point during the winter.
That's all we know. I mean, everybody seems I know that that Friday when I was called in, I started asking about the heat line, wondering whether the system was, they were going to pressure test the system for the building to determine whether we could use the heat over there, but no, we cannot use, we're shut off at this building. We just shut the heat off for over there at this point. We put in 2 gas heaters that day, but as it turns out, we really don't want, we wanted that desiccant heat system in there to where we could draw it out and not just have the heaters going with the moisture. Now, there has been, at this point, being that we're a week and a half out, there is starting to be some microbial growth in the facility. And today, not high levels, but there is, after a week of having wet stuff around. But now that they're getting the moisture levels down low enough, they will be treating the spraying for that and treating that. Today they're going to be taking some walls out, and here's some of the challenges. They don't know if there's insulation in there. I kind of laughed. I said, I highly doubt it. that building, the insulation is the block that's this wide, but there might be, So they'll be taking some of these walls out to make sure that there isn't, that they can dry the interior of the stone as well, and make sure that there isn't a lot of insulation just harboring microbial. And that's the other thing they'll be doing today. On the second floor, interestingly, one of the challenges is there seems to be something like 5 to 6 layers of floor, including, I believe, as best we can tell, 3 layers of wood floor, with possible other flooring, some kind of linoleum in between. So that's really creating a challenge for drying those floors, so they're going to start removing the woodwork and pulling those floors up and labeling and just setting them aside. They will pull not all the flooring up, they'll see how the drying goes, and they'll pull a floor up at a time. I believe that's all I have to do.
So is insurance covering all of this preparation?
So far, so good. Because it is, it could be cheaper for insurance to do it this way than to have the whole building and to try to demo it. They aren't sure, we aren't sure where the costs are until we know that structural report is going to be, we're just in conversation with insurance.
I just want to know that we don't go ahead and do something that's not covered by insurance in there.
Absolutely not. We've been very cautious about that.
Okay.
The insurance adjuster, I was on the phone with him at 8:30 last night. I'll be meeting with him at 10:30 this morning. He stayed over in La Crosse so that because he's down from the city, so that he can, I advised him that the engineer is coming today, so he stayed over so that he could meet with the engineer. Okay.
So you'll let us know when you get the structural reports.
Absolutely, you'll be the first to know. Don't hesitate to call if you have any questions at all. I know there's a lot of speculation out there. Most of it has, as far as I can tell, has proven to be without merit. Thank you.
Do you have a smoke-free campus policy? It was on the agenda, yeah. Not trying to put you on the spot, but...
Next week's agenda, maybe?
Okay.
This one.
I'm sorry, I must have not included it in the update. What we have, let me just give you briefly, Public Health is looking at having a smoke-free campus, including in their parking lots, and the facilities around. So of course, people can smoke in their cars probably. That's not what they're talking about, but we're talking about on the sidewalks, outside the doors, and and space around the building. and total
It's just that public health area.
Just public health. What I would like to do is look at it as a model for the county as a whole, all of our facilities,
Yeah,
campus-wide.
you okay with me?
Now, I know Mary's been very adamant too about e-cigarettes, and I would assume that's going to include
That's
that.
included in that. We are putting the, I'm glad you asked that because I was going to put that into a format that is more of our county policy format. The policy that she sent me for consideration was from the William Mitchell School of Law for Public Policy. And it's very well written, extremely well written for any government agency that would want to adopt it. And so I think the supermajority of our employees, there's very few smokers. I think it's, and we also have an obligation to the public to provide a smoke-free facility as well as around our doors. I personally don't think 20 feet away is sufficient. Being a former smoker, there's no more zealous advocate for anti-smoking than a former smoker, but that's where we are. So we'll have something together for you, and
On that e-cigarettes, I think Mary has a sample ordinance over at Jamie's for
One in
review
process.
before
Okay, good.
it's brought to us.
But that'll be a separate.
That'll be separate.
That's separate from the
That's
smoking
policy for e-cigarettes.
that ordinance is for the sales to minors, et cetera.
Has 10 pages. It covers a lot.
She's done a lot of work in that area.
Thanks.
Is that it?
Thank you.
Tess, when you start with the policy for not smoking, we'll have a copy of it before it comes up here, or?
What we do with policies, in fact, I'm going to be sending the personnel policy, some edits to that through as well, because there's some things in there that just are outdated that we don't even use anymore. What I typically do is I vet it through the department head committee, the department head first, and we discuss it at department head meeting. And if they have questions or suggestions, then I go back and do rewrites to policy. And that's how I've done the safety policy, the data practices policy, the drug policy, all of those to date. And so it takes a little while because we make it as inclusive as possible with every department head. And my assumption is they talk to their staff as well. And so we try. And I certainly would be sending it to the board early, but there'd probably more than likely be, once you go through that more lengthy process, there'd be edits and amendments to it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Consent agenda. We've all got a report on HUD Section 8 rental assistance vouchers report. And we also got a copy of the minutes from the Bluff Country Multi-County HRA annual meeting. We've reviewed that.
And we could move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unfinished business. Under frac sand issue, the only thing brought up is next week, next Monday, the committee meets again. I don't have anything other than that. Highway Department building, did you have any further meetings? Not yet. Courthouse issues, we've got plenty of issues, don't we? And no report, even though I see the legislators back in session, so maybe we'll hear something, I don't know. Commissioner reports, Dana.
We had an EDA meeting last Wednesday, and we already got a report from Rick about what we did. Very good meeting, good stuff.
It sounded good.
I'd like to respond to Mr. Fields.
Mr. what?
Mr. Fields is public comment, I
Oh.
think, is that?
Sure.
I don't remember, Mr. Mike, about talking about the cost of But the commission's gonna be out, we're talking about, were we talking about the highway department?
No, I think it got
I just want to
mentioned.
clarify that.
Oh, okay.
No, and I know it got mentioned, I don't remember what meeting was last meeting and what, but I do remember
I
that
remember
statement was made, I don't remember by who, about what's the cost gonna be.
Yeah.
And to be honest too, I'm sure that's gonna come up in these meetings, because when we start talking about like, air monitoring, stuff like that, that was a discussion that we had one time. And we know that the air monitoring equipment is extremely expensive. And so, those are issues that are gonna come up. One of the other things that was kind of, side chat was, as far as regulating who's gonna be in charge of monitoring or regulating or making sure laws are followed, and, and those are all things that need to be brought up. So you're right, Mike, it does need to be looked at, because those are financial costs tied to it. So, right, so, rest assured, it'll be looked at. I'll make sure that is brought up and looked at. We'll keep you guys informed as far as, when we get that far to costs and, the analysis part of it. I definitely will be pushing to make sure that is thoroughly looked
I
at
think we
too.
all would like to see the cost.
Yeah, yeah. And
My
that-
worry is that, it seems that people are getting it in their heads that banning frac sand costs money, not banning frac sand is free. And
Yeah.
I think it's the other way around.
Yeah, and not to get too deep on this yet, and we can talk more after the meeting too, but you're right, there's gonna be costs. And you had mentioned too about, lawsuits being one, and I think you're right. It's speculation that you would get sued, and it's speculation that you would lose. So you're right, that's speculation, but we do know that there are costs to regulations and monitoring and stuff like that, and we'll look at it, and I'll make
That'll all
sure.
be covered.
Yeah, so, yeah. Anything else, Dan?
No, that's it.
I had nothing?
Okay, I had a Caledonia EDA meeting. I met with Tom Beegling, and Rick Houghton was there also, discussing, I guess, tax issues, or real estate tax issues, and things that can be done in the community, I guess, to bring on some development. And that's it for meetings. And then I just wanted to mention that there was an article in the Minneapolis Tribune about child abuse cases, and Houston County was mentioned in there, and quite favorably. I don't know if anybody else read it or not.
Yep, I read it too, I got a copy of it.
Yeah. That's it.
Yes, it was a very, very
Yeah.
positive
Like, we have a very good
record.
department here.
Yes, top in the state or something,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah, that was awesome. I had the EDA meeting, and it was really good, and I think that it's so good that we're building, that we're going forward with things, and it was really interesting, and sometimes I don't think that we realize the business that we do have in the county, and promoting them. That's all.
Rick has really done a very good job
Yes.
in this county.
I believe we're building a good climate for businesses to begin around here, creating new jobs. It's really, I'm really excited about what they're doing.
And I didn't have any extra meetings this past week.
And are we meeting next week? Michelle?
Michelle, we have a meeting next week, I believe?
Yeah, the regular schedule says that we're having a meeting next week because the first week of May, Sean and I will be at election training.
So we're not having one the first of
So
May.
not the first week of May.
The first
Well, I
Tuesday.
Which is what, May 6th,
Um,
I believe.
Yep,
I don't have it.
it is May
Yes.
6th.
May 6th, we do not have a meeting.
May.
We have one next week. Speaking of that, maybe if everybody's willing to, after our regular meeting next week, possibly having a little strategic planning meeting again. Okay. We need to talk about, the jail and,
Mhm. I will be absent.
oh, you will be.
Yeah.
Well, then we'll wait. But we should think about doing that again,
Yeah.
because we've got a lot of things we need to plan ahead with. So. Okay.
So no meeting on the 6th.
No meeting the 6th
6th of what?
of May.
Yeah, and I think that's why we scheduled one for the 29th.
Here, I thought I had a week off.
Well, you do.
You do.
It's just a week later.
Just a week later, yes, that's right. Sounds good. Any other commissioner reports or business to be brought up? Discussion items, approved claims, human service.
Make a motion to approve the claims, human service.
Second.
Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we have department head meeting today, Steve and I. And next department is May 27th, and it's Dana and Judy.
Yep.
Justin's taking.
Yep, I'm on for Dana.
With that little note. Okay.
I'll fix it.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.